You know what time it is. Ossie from Three Monkeys Solderless, home of the world's best cables for your pedal boards and stuff. All right, so today I thought do a little bit more tone matching and then get into a little bit more guitar building. So the tone matching thing I want to do is going to be to see how the A Talking About Love tracks compares with what I've been using thus far. And then we're going to look at a guitar that I have pulled out of the bowels of the operation that probably was started, over, 10, 15 years ago. Got to a point of completion, a guitar that I've always wanted to finish, always wanted to build. And now I think we're just going to build it. Let me grab it for you real quick. It's just right over here. So here we have it. This would be a Korina Les, right? So we have a Korina body, Korina neck, rosewood fretboard, all that kind of stuff. It's in this state right now. Needs, to be finished up, turned into a playing guitar. So a lot of the woodworking has obviously been out of the way, built at the old shop. And started off as just some Korina that I had bought when I was in my 20s. Some really lightweight stuff that I got up in New York, of all places. This was when Korina was like, no one even heard of this stuff. An Exotic Woods importer up in White Plains, New York. I purchased everything that they had Korina wise, and I didn't know whether it was supposed to be light or heavy, but it turned out that this was some of the lightest Korina that is in existence, under 2 pounds per board foot. So I started the build of the Les Paul in the 90s, and just the body cut out, and then it just sat there. Then got some, this is a Honduran rosewood, which I got a big block of, a big, probably about 5 inches by 5 inches by 3 foot long, just railroad tie of rosewood, and cut it up into this stuff. And it's really beautiful. It's very dense, similar to Brazilian. Wanted to try it out compared to the Brazilian that I got. Has these historic type inlays on them, right? Accurate celluloid nitrate inlays on there. Nice streaks. I think it's going to make a hell of a guitar. So we're going to finish this thing up. So let's get into the tone match first, and then we could go into the other room, and maybe we could just put together like a checklist of what needs to be done to finish this thing. All right, so we're going to start with getting into GarageBand, and I've loaded up a ISO track for that. So let's get into GarageBand and see what it sounds like. All right, so we're in GarageBand, and I've loaded up this project, which is just a Running with the Devil sort of EQ project. And I've already done a EQ match. I won't go through that with the original sort of isolated track, a very short one. And then what I did was I looked at the EQ points inside of this inside of the Fab filter, and then selected some EQ points to add to what was the original sound that I had. Because I felt like it was really close, but it just was lacking maybe a little bit of body, just a couple of little like details. So I thought that the actual sort of like match was a little bit over the top. So what I did was I wrote down all of the frequencies, the boosts for each frequency, and then the particular cue that was used for those, and then kind of selected some out, not necessarily randomly, but just boosted in the areas where I thought the sound was, let's say, not as full bodied. So let's take a peek at that. So this is the track right here that I'm in for the guitar. And this right here would be the original EQ match that was done with the track, the Eddie track. And you can see there's a lot going on, right? There's some, got to be 20 some odd EQ points. So I felt it was a little bit too much, and that I was pretty close with the original sound, but it needed something. So what I ended up doing was pulling out some and basically using this as the EQ. So you can see there's some low end boost and then a few frequencies that are also boosted in one sort of like global cut. So we have, like, to warm it up, we've got a 5K cut down about 2.6 dB running at, a very wide Q of 0.1. I've got a boost at 1400 of 3 decibels with a sharp Q of 16, a boost at 700 with a boost of 2.5 with a Q of 20. Excuse me, also very sharp. And I have another boost at 481, 2 dB up, 18 Q, which is sharp. A 320. This one seemed to really kind of give the guitar some good body without making it sound tubby. A 3 dB boost with an 18 Q, again, pretty sharp. And then adding some more low end, 170 hertz at 2.4 and 16. And then one at 83, 2 up. And then a 55 hertz. Curiously, that would be in the match, because that's probably maybe the cones that were used, the 55 hertz pulsonic sort of cones, which give you that sort of low end Celestians kind of sound. So let's listen to see what this sounds like. Let me mute the microphone and we'll see what we got, and I can toggle it in and out. So I think it adds some body back into the sound. It gives it a little bit more dimension to it, a little bit more life, and it seems like it's a little bit more upfront, a little bit more solid sounding. Not as it didn't like the straight up Oxbox sound, which I'm using, which is the greenback punch with some reverb, is pretty real. It's pretty good. It's 90+% of the way there with the Marshmallow. Or I should say I'm using the white guitar again with the custom straight into the Marshmallow, then to the Oxbox out of the line out. So it's 90% plus the way there, and it's just kind of like gilding the lily maybe at this point, trying to get it to get a little bit closer. And it seems like every single isolated track that you hear anyway has a little bit of a differential in terms of how much low end or how much top end. But I have to say once again, if this is EQing, right? This is not like transformative in the sense of creating something like an image that isn't there. This is like taking a photograph of a person and adjusting the colors, as opposed to changing the person into a different look entirely, right? So you can't take, let's say, an amplifier that doesn't already have Eddie's sound kind of in there, that it doesn't have that sound already in, and then put it through this, fab filter and then expect it to come out like that. It has to start off to sound, pretty damn close to Ed's amp. So, this sounds the way it distorts, the sort of differentials between the different frequencies, the kind of distortion that it has is, to my ear, very close. And then when you add in more of this, it kind of adds to it. Now, again, saying that, different songs I think were also EQ'd differently. So this sound works really well for this particular song. You know, it gives you it complements the chords and the things that are used there. If you were to choose this for, let's say, another song, this exact EQ points, it kind of doesn't quite get there. So you can listen to, if you did like Ain't Talking About Love for it, that's EQ'd a little bit differently to accentuate it differently. So we can listen to that with this. So, I mean, it's good, but it's not, it doesn't sound exactly like the record. The record one had a different EQ point that made a little bit more crunchy, a little bit more top probably in that, to make it sound a little bit more grabby and a little bit more evil. Other songs, let's say like I'm the One, would have required a little bit more articulation, where this is more like a fattening for, you know, this is like a horn section, you know, as opposed to being very articulate, like a... That would require slightly different EQing as well to kind of accentuate, you know, the whole kind of thing going on. Same with that one would require something a little bit different, as would... Well, the guitar is out of tune already. Hit the whammy bar. I should have never hit the whammy bar. All right, so now that we've untuned the guitar, it's time to get out of here. But I thought, you know, making some progress with the Fab filter. I'm really liking it and having some fun goofing around with, you know, the different sort of songs and seeing, you know, how I could get close. And it's definitely a fussy piece of gear in terms of getting the levels right. If you don't have everything set kind of right, you can end up with some really weird results. So yeah, I'm still digging it, and there'll be probably, you know, I'm going to go through some more songs and some more albums and just kind of figure out how to use this thing a little bit better. So, all right, let's end the inside the DAW right here, and then we're going to go into the guitar room and we'll take a look at that Korina guitar. So here's the guitar once again. I think the thing to do now would be to figure out where the guitar is. At this point, it's been sitting, obviously, for a number of years, and figure out what is left to do on it and make sure that everything sort of is going to work and come together. So the best thing to do is to actually put the hardware on the guitar and then string it up and then play it and make sure that, you know, your neck angles are good, that there's no, you know, woodworking that you have to kind of finish up with, that, you know, the bridge height is good to the neck angle, that there aren't any, you know, mistakes about the placement of the bridge. We're going to have to double check all this again. So, you know, I've got some parts now that I've dug out of various parts bins. I've got a little sheet here and a magic marker, and we'll go through what to use, what I'm going to put on it. So we'll put some machine heads on it, you know, pretty much right away. Well, I should say, let's go through it, you know, pretty good in order of what we want to do. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is make sure that I locate the bridge in a place where it's sitting left to right, treble to bass side, so that the strings sit nicely over the fretboard, that they're not biased to one side or the other, and that the guitar will intonate in that position. So we're going to use, you know, the straight edge method of running down the sides of the guitar and locate where the center line of this neck is in relationship to the bridge. So we're going to want to do a bridge location. And then we're going to install the bridge. Now the kind of bridge, I'm not sure which one I want. So I've got, the standard, ABR sort of bridge that you'd find on the Les Paul. I've also got, well, this one's not nickel or chrome. It's gold, so it's a little bit goofy looking for this, but for purposes of working on the guitar, it'll be fine. Use one of these Nashville styles. And then we would be choosing that, in my opinion, based upon, the sort of stud mounting hardware. I suppose that you could probably get, hardware that would fit a smaller bridge, but this size bridge, I like. It has a little bit more intonation, but more importantly, Korina is not the same as maple in terms of its hardness and ability to hold a machine screw in there and not kind of work its way loose by sort of, wearing out the holes into which the, number 10 or whatever it's going to be, number 8, probably number 8 screws are inserted. Eventually, it'll sort of, the pressure on the bridge would be to push it towards the headstock and down, which will make those posts want to dig their way out of the softer Korina. So using these larger posts will allow for, obviously a larger diameter, which leads to less force, per inch, basically, right? A bigger, smaller, there's more leverage at a point. Bigger, there's less leverage. So this will reduce the leverage on the bridge and allow it to, stay where we want it to be and not sort of, work its way loose. So we might go with that, considering it's a Korina Les Paul, Gibson. I don't know if they made them or not. It did not back in the day anyway. We can put whatever we want on them. So we'll put like one of these guys, I guess, on there. Then we're going to put on a stop tail, right? So we've got a nice lightweight Godo nickel plated aluminum stop tail and its studs, which will go in here, right? So we're going to basically locate all these parts, make sure they're all in the right place. And we're also going to drill for the grounding wire that'll come off the stud through this hole into the control cavity. So we're going to do that. Bridge location, tail location, ground wire. So that'll work. And then we're going to put on some tuners. That would be the next thing to do. So I've got these. They're Clusons. They're made by Godo, and they're pre-aged, so I don't have to go through, sort of like the muriatic acid method of aging hardware, which I've done plenty of. And this is kind of what they look like. The buttons are a little brown, but that's not terrible. I like to see them brown rather than green. Pearl would look nice on this guitar too, but I think, being that I'm going to finish this guitar in kind of like a honey finish, you're going to sort of see what I should do. I should show you the style of finish that I want to put on this, like the color. And that would be from a Korina V that I made a while back. So let me grab that and I'll show you. Hold on. All right, so this is the V. It's a little bit sitting, but this is the color I'm looking for, which is sort of like a, a light honey sort of color to it. It's a golden yellow. It just looks kind of like I always think like food. It looks like you'd want to eat this. It looks like some kind of vanilla wafer color. Just, tasty wheat. And this has sort of like the greener tulip heads on it compared to like the brown ones. Right, so you can see these are a little smaller and a little less green than that. But yeah, that's kind of the color that I'm looking to get close to. So let me put this guitar where I'm not going to smash it on the floor and ruin months of work with that thing. All right, so we'll put the clousons on there. All right, let's see what other hardware I've dug out. We're going to need to put a nut on the guitar. So I have, I like these. These are kind of cool. So these are the Tusk nuts. Now a lot of people be like, you got to use nylon. Oh, all right, whatever. You know, it's not a, I'm not trying to make a, you know, an exact 59 burst replica here, because this is not what that is. So we've got, you know, we can, let me turn the guitar around, take some of this hardware off so you can sort of see the headstock side. So, you know, we'll have the clousons mounted in there, and then we'll mount this guy in here. So it just needs to be sort of shaved a little bit, so it'll slide easily into the, it's pretty much almost there, right? You can sort of see it's almost in there as it is. So we'll put the nut on there, get it to height, get the bridge on, get the tuners in, and then we're going to string it up and see, make sure that everything's playing correctly, that the guitar is, you know, is in a shape, so you don't spend a lot of time finishing, and then you got to do some woodworking, and that ruins all your finishing. So we don't want that to happen. Yep, so we got to do the tuners, install. We got to put in the nut, right? We'd also want to do, maybe we could put in the pickups. Why not? Because if we're going to string it up, let's make it a working guitar. So we could put in the pots, make sure that that's all correct, that, you know, that they fit through nicely. You know, this is a sort of like an angled route for the control cavity. I did use a Forstner to take a little bit more out here, but I use sort of like the old Les Paul method of, you know, putting this thing on a slight arch so that the router can go deeper here than it is here. So we'll make sure that all the pots can fit through nice and well, that all the wire channels are working good, and that sort of thing. So I'll put some pickups in there. So I got some pickup rings. Might use these guys. I want to see what else is out there, but I've got two kind of colors here. One's a DiMarzio ring, which was kind of popular maybe 15 years ago or 10 years ago. And this one is, looks like maybe an all parts ring. Neither one say M69 on them. So there you go. So we'll get the pickup rings on there. And I've got this pick guard that I cut out of some cream plastic, some ABS. And that'll go like so. Let's get it together. Something like that. Yeah, I think right about like there, there. We'll attach that at a later point to the edge. We'll have our bridge on there and our stop tail on there. We'll have our pots. Switch, I have a black one. It's obviously got to be cream. I'll find it. I'm sure I've got a cream poker chip somewhere around here. Let's see what else I've got here. We've got the toggle switch, right? The Les Paul type toggle switch. That'll go up through there. Make sure that that's the right depth. Probably use it like a cream switch tip on there. And then I've got this jack plate for it as well that can be used. Looks pretty good. So those are all the parts that I think I'm going to need for it. I'll have to obviously search out, once it gets closer, we can search out some, you know, matching parts that will, you know, complement the guitar a little bit more. But this is sort of like the woodworking, finishing up the woodworking, verifying that the guitar is going to be a good playable guitar, that there's no issues before we finish the guitar. Spray some finish on there. So, all right, so once the thing is like strung up, we can evaluate the fretwork as well. We can actually do that before any of this other work is done, we can get, you know, an idea of how the neck is right now, right? It's going to be, see, you know, get it straight as we can, and then do some fret work on it. So we could do that. Let's do a neck evaluation and fret work. So that way we could get the frets leveled and polished before we string it up. So that would be good. So we can do that. Then we can string it up and play it. Make sure that it's working great. Once that's been verified, then it's time to get into the finish work. Now the finish work is really pretty much like a two-step process, or maybe three-step process for the way I think of it, that you need to, let's say, finish sand it a little bit, get it to like 320 maybe, get a little bit of finish sanding done, maybe 220 it, and then grain fill. So we're going to need to do a little sanding. Oh, we should also, that's a good idea too. Once it's strung up too, you could get a really good idea of how, you know, the grip of the guitar is, whether it's too fat for you or too thin. And there's a little bit of meat that could be taken off a neck before you get sort of into the, you know, danger area of getting into the truss rod cavity. This has, you know, an old-fashioned, you know, one-way truss rod that has a little bit of a curve to it in there, the way that Gibson used to do it. So right now I'm feeling it's kind of like almost like a V or a boat neck a little bit. So my preference over the years has changed a lot depending upon, you know, what I've been feeling. So this guitar, you know, once the strings are on there, it feels like it may be a little bit too big compared to what I've been playing recently. So I could take a few thous off the back of the neck while it's strung up, and then feel it, and then keep working it and feel it. So get that done. So once it's strung up, we'll do a neck carve, right? So neck carve, touch up. Okay. Better be careful. I just got ink on my fingers. I don't want to get it on the guitar. So yeah, we'll do that. Then we're going to we'll go over to the other side here. We could do I don't want to write on that. Just a grain fill. So the grain filler, like, so Korina, guys that have built guitars know all this stuff, but Korina is a pretty open pore wood, similar to a mahogany, right? It's sort of a blonde African mahogany kind of wood. It's you know, if you look at the way that the grain runs, how the wood is actually sort of, you know, what it really looks like. You know, it resembles, to my eye anyway, it resembles mahogany. It really does, but it's just sort of like a blonde mahogany. And this is, obviously, it's very light wood. So I would like to use like an oil-based grain filler. Something along the lines of, there was a few companies that used to sell some really good stuff like Bartley's that I liked a lot. That was like an oil base. And that doesn't raise the grain or sort of like introduce moisture into the wood the way a water-based grain filler would do. You could also do something like, you know, using a two-part catalyzed sort of like sealer. You could do that as well, you know, something along the lines of like a Fuller Plast, and then sand it until the grain is filled with, you know, the catalyzed sort of like varnish, because that has more solids in it. And it can fill grain. And, you know, the grain here it's not like swamp ash where it's very deep. It's fairly shallow. So conceivably, you could do a minimum of grain filling and just use, you know, some heavier duty sealers, and seal it off that way. On the ends, you might get a little bit of sort of like pin pores and things like that. But, you know, for the most part, you could probably get away with just doing a sealer. So we'll try some different things, but we want it to be very light colored so it doesn't turn the wood like a brown. I don't want that. I want it to stay as close to being this, you know, wafer sort of cracker color, you know, this sort of dough color to it with a little bit of yellow, a little bit of brown in there. And then when I hit it with just like I'm going to use for this, I think I'm going to use this stuff. It's nitro lacquer. It's not going to be that dark stuff that I would use like on the Telecasters. So I can show you like a Telecaster sort of like color. Now this is a Telecaster. Started off as actually, you know, like a real sort of attempt at a 50s Telecaster, but then I was like, you know, I'm gonna turn it into, you know, a freakazoid sort of guitar. But the color of this yellow is actually just the yellowing of an old lacquer. So this was painted in a white, like a translucent white, and then I sprayed this nitro lacquer on it that I had stored outside in the sun in mason jars for several years. I still have that stuff, and it's been sitting outside for many years, and it's the color of motor oil now. And when you spray that on, you get that color, and it's a little bit of a brownish sort of color to it, brownish yellow. But I'm looking for doing something that's a little bit more like less brown, more yellow. So I'm going to use this stuff. It's a Balin's product. It's called piano lacquer, and it's a nitro lacquer. It's pretty much has a slight golden hue to it. And in my experience, it doesn't really brown up or yellow too much over time, as much as, let's say, like Watco or some of the other Seagrave or some of these other lacquers that were out there do. So I'll take some piano lacquer and put like maybe 1 or 2 drops of like a honey amber in there, and then just shoot it as basically like clear coat. You know, so it won't be like a shader coat. And then clear over that. The clear will be the shader. So what's good about that too is, like, if you're trying to spray something, let's say that's a toner, and then shoot lacquer over it, and you only want to do 1 or 2 coats of toner, it's very difficult to get that to look even, that it doesn't have like spray sort of like witness lines of the overlap. You know, that the places where the sprays overlapped will be darker, and then they'll be lighter in places where they're not overlapped. You have a tendency under scrutiny to see sort of like the direction that everything was sprayed in. But if you're to use you know, if you're going to put, let's say, 9 coats of lacquer on here, and every one of it has a little bit of yellow in it, it's going to be very difficult to tell that, you know, which direction that the spray was in. You can obviously, you know, randomize your patterns as well, so that you can minimize the look of that sort of, you know, streaky kind of look to it. You can minimize that. We also have, obviously, somewhere around here, I had a bell cover. Yeah, here it is. This one looks like it's aged already. Yeah, I think I must have aged this one. So that'll go up here, up top at the neck. That looks good. I know you can't see that, so we'll just put it right there. Right, that's where it'll be. And then we'll put maybe the Moto Teddy logo on the headstock. I wonder if I could get, that would take too much time, but to get a Perloid Moto Teddy logo made. I have some that are done in gold leaf, so I'll probably just use gold leaf, so it'll look like, you know, a Junior used to have sort of like a gold leaf or gold sort of, not a Perloid inlay, but rather, you know, like a transfer almost look to it. All right, so I think this is going to be a fun project for the next few months. Hopefully be able to get it ready for paint by spring, when it starts to warm up a little bit, and then spraying lacquer is a little bit easier. So yeah, so that's good. I think that's good for today. Again, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. Trying to include a little bit of both, a little bit of tone chasing, a little bit of building, all that kind of stuff, all the things done around here. All right, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.